If you're planning to study in France, there is something you need to understand before you even start applying to universities. Not after admission, not after getting your visa, before. Because one of the biggest mistakes I made was thinking scholarships would somehow figure themselves out later. And that mistake potentially cost me thousands of euros. Today, we are going to break down the scholarships that actually exist for international students in France, which ones Indian students should know about, how they work, and what I wish I had understood before I started my own application process. Because scholarships in France are not as simple as people think. And if you understand them early enough, they can completely change your study abroad journey. One of the questions I get asked the most is, Sonia, did you get a scholarship? And the answer is no, I did not. Now, does that mean scholarships don't exist? Absolutely not. In fact, after moving to France, I realized there were far more opportunities than I knew about while I was applying. My biggest problem wasn't that I wasn't eligible. My biggest problem was that I started thinking about scholarships way too late. I was focused on admissions, visas, on moving abroad, and scholarship research became an afterthought. Looking back, that's exactly what I would change. Because scholarships are not something you look at after applying. They are something you should factor into your strategy from the very beginning. And that's why I want to explain the different types of scholarships that students usually come across while preparing for France. Let's start with probably the most famous one, the Eiffel Excellence Scholarship. If you've spent even a few days researching France, you've probably heard the name Eiffel. And naturally, many students think, great, I'll just apply for Eiffel. But that's not really how it works. The Eiffel Scholarship is one of the most prestigious scholarships offered by the French government. It's designed for highly qualified international students pursuing master's or doctoral studies. But here's something many students don't realize. In most cases, students don't directly submit themselves. Universities nominate candidates, which means your university plays a major role in the process. This is one of the reasons why researching universities early matters. Because certain schools are more active in supporting students through these opportunities than others. Now, does that mean you shouldn't try? Of course not. But you need to understand that Eiffel is competitive and should be viewed as one opportunity among many others, not your entire plan. Now, let's move to a scholarship that's especially relevant for Indian students, the Charpak Scholarship. This is managed through the French Embassy in India and Campus France. And honestly, I think many students discover Charpak much later than they should. The reason Charpak is so popular is because it's specifically designed to encourage Indian students to study in France. Depending on the category, support can include things like financial assistance, visa support benefits, and other advantages that make the move easier. What matters here is timing. Applications open and close. And if you only start researching scholarships after you've already rushed into applications, you can miss opportunities before you even knew they existed. And that's exactly why I keep repeating one thing. Scholarship research should happen before university applications, not after, before. Now, let's talk about the category that I think many students underestimate. University scholarships. Because when students think about scholarships, they often focus only on the famous names like Eiffel or Charpak. But many business schools and universities in France have their own scholarship programs as well. These can include merit scholarships, early application scholarships, tuition fee reductions, international student scholarships, academic excellence awards, and various funding schemes depending on your profile. Schools like Schema, Neuma, Kedge, and many others regularly have scholarship opportunities available. The exact amounts and criteria vary. But the important thing is this. Sometimes a university scholarship can save you several thousand euros. And many students never even check. That's a mistake. Now, there's another category people don't talk about enough. And these aren't always called scholarships. Sometimes they are grants, sometimes they are mobility fundings, sometimes they are regional support programs, and sometimes they are linked to specific partnerships. And because they don't always carry the word scholarship, students completely overlook them. This is where doing deep research, becomes more important. The opportunities often exist. The challenge is finding them before the deadlines pass. Now, I want to address one of the biggest myths I hear. Many students believe scholarships are only for perfect students. Perfect grades, perfect profiles, perfect achievements. And that's simply not true. Of course, strong academics help. But scholarships are not always looking at only one thing. Different programs value different aspects of your profile. Some focus heavily on academics, others look at leadership, some consider motivation, some look at international potential, and some are linked directly to the institution you're applying to. Which is why I always tell students, don't reject yourself before the scholarship does. Research first, then decide. Now, if I had to start my France journey all over again, here's exactly what I would do. 12 months before applying, I would start learning French. 10 months before applying, I would begin researching universities. At the same time, I would start building a scholarship spreadsheet. Every scholarship, every deadline, every requirement, everything in one place. Then I would start preparing my motivation letters early because strong applications don't happen overnight. And most importantly, I would stop treating moving abroad like a race because that's exactly what I did. I was in a hurry. And when you're rushing, you stop making strategic decisions and you start making emotional decisions. So, if you're preparing for France right now, here's what I want you to remember. Getting admitted is only a part of the journey. Funding your education is part of the strategy too. And the earlier you start thinking about it, the stronger your position becomes. In the next episode, we are going to talk about something that students ask me about constantly. How do you actually choose the right university in France? Rankings, business schools, public universities, internships, things I wish I had understood before making my own decision. So, if you're following the France Roadmap series, make sure you're subscribed. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest concern right now? Scholarships, university selection, jobs, French language, or something else? And I will see you in the next episode. Until then, bye-bye.